It's time to shift gears from automobiles to agriculture now. Agriculture hopped the headlines for multiple reasons in the past year. And despite impacting the majority of our lives, the industry contributes merely 17 to 18% to the GDP. However, this is changing fast as we have seen the phenomenal rise in the number of Agritech startups that are not only making technology more accessible, but also helping these farmers to improve their lives. To make sense of all things agriculture for us, we're soon going to be joined by Shashank Shekhar, co-founder and CEO of DeHaat, the full-stack business-to-farmer Agritech platform in 2012 that was set up as a one-stop destination for small farmers catering to all their agricultural needs. Under his leadership, DeHaat has grown into one of India's fastest growing agri-tech startups, employing a brigade of over 1,000 professionals and working with over 700,000 farmers and 3,400 plus micro entrepreneurs. In conversation with him is Madan Padaki, co-founder of Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, an alliance that catalyzes all stakeholders to collaborate on igniting a mass entrepreneurship movement. A serial entrepreneur, Madan was the co-founder of MeritTrack, India's first skills assessment company, and also the co-founder of and CEO of OneBridge, a village commerce network that delivers digital services and products, bridging access, choice, and convenience gaps for rural consumers. Through Rubinomics Express, a yatra to be organized by OneBridge, Madan hopes to understand the aspirations of the next billion consumers. So it's over to Shashank Shekhar and Madan Padaki now.
Thank you. Thank you, Rini, and wonderful to be on the show. Shashank, lovely to meet you. Virtually, still looking to meet you in person, hopefully very soon. I think you're on mute.
Likewise, Madan. Pleasure to meet you. I'm sure we'll get to meet in person very soon. And thanks for the intro, Rini. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So, Shashank, do you want to get started out on your insights, your journey, learnings, and I'll share mine, and we can get into our conversation over the next 20-25 minutes or so.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good way to start. I'll be very quick here because the journey has been pretty long in our case. It's been long, 11 years, but that's the beauty of Agri, right? Because every next day you get to learn new things, right? Every next day you get a sense that, hey, so you are still a blank slate. So it looks like just a beginning. And but yes, a very quick flashback is that in my case, I graduated from IIT Delhi. I did consulting for 3.5 years. And during my consulting stint, basically, I got exposed to one end of food chain, which was more on the buyer side, because the stint was more related to supply chain, retail, FMCG space. Prior to that, I originally belonged to a farmer's family. So initial 7-8 years of my life, I'd spent in a very small village of Bihar. So that was the default setting to have exposure of another end of food chain, which was the farmer side. So this was a trigger point back in 2011. And those days, Agritech was agriculture when we had started. But yeah, I think in case of DeHaat, the interesting thing happened that it has been a pure bottom-up journey. We started our journey right at ground zero, meeting farmers one-on-one. There was no usage of technology at all, but it was more like a design, intervention, design innovation that, that how we can build a large, sustainable working model around Indian farmers, and how we can build a model to help Indian farmers during each and every stage of their cropping cycle. And then again, since then, over the years, again, we had been building different services, different offerings for farmers, and we evolved as a full stack platform. We also transformed our grassroots learning to various technology interfaces, and that's where basically few of the numbers has been mentioned during the intro, could get achieved. The full stack, I would like to double click for the audience here that that DeHaat is a one-stop solution for farmers. It's a crop agnostic model. It's a region agnostic model. Regardless of the crop they are growing, currently, conventionally, every individual farmer, they have to go through ample of difficulties. They have certain agricultural needs, Madan, as I'm sure you can understand, right? Support, advisory,
Yeah.
financing, insurance. At
Exactly.
ground level, for all these requirements, they have to rely upon different people, different channels. And again, while chasing those different people, often the individual farmer, they lose efficiency. So long story short, DeHaat, again, over the years, we could build a model so that we can bring everything related to agriculture for the farmer under one roof, and the roof is close to the farm gate, right? So in a transparent manner, as simple as that. So yeah, but as I said, it's good that that now our farmers base is close to 1 million farmers. Our outreach currently is close to 62,000 Indian villages.
Wow.
But what is more exciting that in India you have 100 million farmers. In
Exactly.
India you have more than 636,000 villages, and that is something what always keep us motivated. So it's although it's 11 years, but it's just a beginning.
Terrific. As they famously say, it's still day zero.
Still day zero.
Whether you agree or disagree, to do a fun on agri. But anyway,
In
that's amazing.
agree, it's only agree.
There's no disagree. That's the beauty of agri, and I completely agree with you. No, I think, Shashank, the whole aspect that I think two things are interesting, and I'll share some of my learnings as well. It's amazing to see. I had not realized that you had spent 11 years doing this. I think a lot of us we don't understand the effort that goes into building a community of 1 million farmers, being in 60,000 odd villages. Many times we look at it from the outside and say, you know what, this just happened in a few years. But what you're saying is, listen, this to solve a complex systemic issue such as agriculture will take time, and it will take a lot of heavy lifting to be done to get the model right. And I really salute you guys for that. At the last 10 years, willy-nilly, well, I've not been directly involved in agriculture. Every family and every
Yeah.
youth and every household that we have touched, 8 out of 10 are farmer families. Be it the work at Herald High, where I stumbled onto this concept of rubonomics, of saying, how do you reimagine a new rural? You can reimagine a new rural if you believe in the talent of youth that exists there. And I have seen magic happen when you're given talent hope. When you've told zero educated, illiterate village youth that who have never ever entered a school, that in 6 months' time you will be speaking confidently in English, be digitally literate and can work in a tech environment. We've seen that magic happen over and over again over 25,000 youth. So talent is a huge underrated quality that none of us get for rural. Second is the power of aspirations. Again, sitting in our own ivory towers, many times we feel that livelihoods, and somehow I abhor the term livelihoods, because I argue that when I go looking for a job in any of these MNCs or the IT companies, I don't go and say, give me a livelihood. I want a career. I want it all, right? The aspirations is not limited to livelihoods. The aspirations is much higher. And how do we understand the aspirations? Third is that there is a innate entrepreneurial spirit and resilience that exists there, which again, we somehow tend to equate entrepreneurship with startups. I argue that our farmers are far more entrepreneurial than anybody else.
Always. Absolutely.
Right? And lastly, and you've seen that the advent of tech the last few years, and technology is a great leveler. So in my experience over the last 10, 15 years in the space, I see that the moment you put these four elements together, talent, technology, aspirations, and entrepreneurial spirit, you can co-create a new rural, which is very different from the old rural and the narratives that are going around. And that new rural we're calling as Ruben, and therefore Rubenomics is the term we've created. So everything in everything I do, be it at Herald High or at One Bridge, at an operational level, is embracing the concept of Rubenomics. The second part, which we're learning quite the hard way at Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, where we believe that there's a missing middle of growing enterprises, and if we can really unleash the power of entrepreneurs to move from just 1 or 2 member shops to 15, 20 people, the unemployment challenge that we have in the country and the huge influx of talent that we have coming in as youth, the rising mass entrepreneurship narrative should be able to take and absorb those jobs. So we dream of a world where can we then energize 10, 15 million enterprises over the next 10 years. And if each of these enterprises are local and can employ 15, 20 people in decent jobs and not just livelihoods, then you can absorb the 100, 150 million people who are entering the workforce and create Wi-Fi, maybe a $50 trillion economy there, right? So, but the realization at G.A.M.E is that this is a systemic issue. This is a complex adaptive problem. And unless you can't solve that issue, unless you get all actors in the room. So you need to get the governments, the various private players, various ecosystem actors like banks, financial institutions, the non-profit the NGO sector, the think tanks, everybody together to define the problem and then figure out what are the various solutions. So that's been our engagement at G.A.M.E. We've supported a variety of initiatives in the agri space. And one of our philosophies has been, and I like the full stack approach, which in our parlance is bringing all the elements working together for the farmer, right? So we've seen, that the first narrative to change is how do you relook at the farmer not just as a beneficiary but as an entrepreneur, right? How do you view the farmer and the household with that lens? Secondly, how do you build narratives and stories of hope, of aspirations to their families? And I'm sure, Shashank, you would have heard this as well. I'd love to maybe pause and bring you into that. I don't know how many farmers I've met when I go to the villages who say, sir, we are doing farming. We have no choice. I don't want my son to be a farmer. Right. And that, and obviously as landholding has gotten more and more fragmented, somewhere I think that narrative has to change. What's your experience on the ground, Shashank? Are you able to do a before and after? Are farmers far more hopeful after they start working with you? And what does that trigger look like?
No. So again, a lot of resonance of thought, Madan, here. Like, for example, if I just take my case, right? For my parents, it was very difficult to digest, right? Being from Bihar, being from rural area, you've gone to IIT, you were doing consulting, right? You have done everything in your life, right? Now the only thing which is left is just get married and then get settled. And then you resigned and you came back to Bihar and came back to agri, came back to rural. So for them it was very difficult to digest. But as you rightly said, it's more like a parental concern. But so it's not like that, that they don't like farming. The farmers obviously they don't like farming. As you rightly said, that they are the strongest, biggest entrepreneur in a way. And this is their default setting for day to day their life. But it's more like a parental concern, as simple as that. But again, not just us as DeHaat. Something what you also said, right? When you are trying to empower the youth through technology, right? For the livelihood creation, not just for themselves but also for the community, right? Such things, I think, and then for the people, because of the people like you, because of the initiative like from organization like us, DeHaat, and again many people, the entire ecosystem, in fact, now is working in that direction in a collaborative manner. Things are changing. Now there is a sort of again there is a reverse migration. Right?
Yes.
Even in our case, right? The simple thought was that when we started off ag, we thought that, hey, so simple, right? Go to village, aggregate the crops, and then sell in the better market. and pass on the benefit to the farmers. As simple as that. But when we went to the ground zero, we got to know that this is not the only problem.
Exactly.
The actual problem begins in the beginning of season itself. Why? Because in same farmer, 10 different farmers growing 6 different varieties of same crop, following 4 different package of practices, how you would aggregate. But anyways, from the socio-economic perspective, we realize that, hey, so for the rural janta, agri is the only, or livestock, agri and livestock is the only revenue stream.
Yeah.
All other sectors like healthcare, education, nutrition, your mobility, your residence, it's all a cost for them.
Exactly.
And since they don't see enough income in agri or livestock, right, they are forced to migrate.
Yeah.
It's not a happy or satisfied state of mind.
Correct.
Right? I mean, as a family, they have to compromise a lot when they decide to migrate.
Oh,
the only
yeah.
reason is that agri. So actually, then it became our mission. If we can do something, as you rightly said, for the livelihood creation, that we can do something for the let's say more and more profit income from agriculture, probably this migration will cut off, right? Probably, in fact, they will be in a better situation to afford
Correct.
better education, better healthcare, and so on, so on. So it's a circular problem. And again, as you mentioned, again, the ecosystem is working in this direction. For example, if I just share data of just our own internal database, 5-6 years ago, average age of farmers we used to deal with this was close to 50. As on date, again, I'm just referring our own internal database. As on date, this is 41. And I'm talking about just a short span of 5 years.
Very interesting.
This is possible only because of technology.
Exactly.
This is possible only because of better connectivity. So even for the youth, for the younger generation, now agri is so-called cool. Why?
Exactly.
Because they are finding app, they're finding easier way to know about the things, right? And at the same time, the lifestyle is like at par, right? I mean, so they are seeing excitement if they get opportunity to grow cash crops. They see excitement if they opportunity to grow any crop for an e-commerce player, for a quick commerce player, or for export for that matter, right? So I think that's where the technology is important, right? And obviously, we are talking about a sector where the sample size of problem statement is huge, and hence the opportunity has never been a question. It's only about your aspiration as an entrepreneur, and then it's only about the innovation. The field, the stage is all set. Why? Because at ground level there is an acceptance, there is a need, right? So yeah, I think that's where, like I always say that that it's a large sector, it's a great sector to work with, and much needed. More importantly, you will get to see the scale as an aspiring entrepreneur. And again, I mean, who don't like scale, right? I mean, everyone wants to see their work at scale. So, and then at the same time, you will also get to see the real life impact on grounds on day-to-day basis, right? What else you need? But yeah, I mean, why don't you share any of such experiences of the transformation? I think from my side to the audience, I think this is one thing probably I would like to highlight, that it's a transition stage, for the sector and for the country, where UPI has become a case study, right? I mean, where monthly traction is more than $100 billion, right? I mean, obviously it's not possible without the traction in rural area, right? Right. Even in past a year and a half, in such an adverse situation, your growth in agriculture is phenomenal. So it's the right time to think about the sector, I would say, through the lens of technology. But yeah, why don't you talk about any transformational experience you have come across?
Yeah, Shashank, no, I completely agree with you. See, the point is that Agritech has made agriculture sexy over the last 4-5 years. That is from the mainstream. When I say mainstream, this side of the world. I think we got to tell a lot more stories and narratives about a change in the fortunes of the farmers themselves, of those who embrace technology. right? It makes them, of course, look cool, but at the end of the line, end of the day, are they making enough money? Are they making more money than they used to make earlier? Have the risk reduced? And I think there are enough and more use cases of that, right? Or stories of that. And I think, Shashank, especially from the Agritechs and all of us, we need to amplify those stories far, far higher in the rural areas, right? I mean, we know how it works, right? If they see one guy who's earned 10,000 rupees, the entire village knows how he's got it, right? And the word of mouth starts spreading, saying that, oh, if this guy has done ABC, I want to do the same thing as well.
That's what I always say. Most of the sectors, sorry to interrupt, most of the sectors, right, they always struggle about acquisition costs, costs, right? They end up with spending a lot of money in marketing. The beauty of this sector is that that once you win the loyalty, it's a lifetime loyalty.
Exactly.
No,
and not only that, you will get all the neighbors on the same bandwagon as well.
They become your ambassador.
Totally. No, I think the other problem we are trying to solve is also, I think, what you alluded briefly, Shashank. So farming is not a single person's job in the household. It is the household that does farming, right? So it's a farmer household, and one of the lessons I'm learning at Herald High and at OneBridge is that how do you look holistically at the family as an entrepreneurial farmer family? Right. So, well, there is certain inputs and market linkages we have to do for the farmer. What else can we do to reduce the burden on the family? For example, in OneBridge, we're using a lot of the sons and daughters of farmers as digital associates for the village. Right. We are able to generate an additional 8,000-10,000 rupees of income for them right through the year. So if you take an average farmer income of at an average of 1.5 lakhs per annum, if you can add another 1 lakh to that income, that reduces the pressure on them. And the decisions they will take because of that is far higher. So I would also think that looking holistically at the farmer household, looking at non-farm incomes, especially leveraging digital, what can we do at the household level? Similarly, most of the women that we meet in the farmer households are members of SHGs, of various SHGs, self-help groups, etc. Where, as you said, apart from farming, they're also doing a lot of income generation activities around livestock. Maybe they bought something to open a small food processing unit. I recently, in one of my visits to villages a few months ago, I met a lady who went and invested 60,000 rupees to buy an agarbatti making machine, right? And she took a loan, and I was aghast. She's sitting in the middle of nowhere trying to make agarbattis, and I'm saying, how are you going to sell it? Right? Where are you going to sell this? And she says, no, I've been able to generate 10,000-15,000 rupees of income by selling agarbattis on once in 3-4 months. I mean, so basically she's earning about 3,000-4,000 rupees a month. So looking at everybody in the family and figuring out what is it that we can do on the income side, what is it that we can do on the risk side, will also ease the pressure of decisions that they will take at a family level. That's one big learning I've seen and there are many stories, right, of pride, of social pride. It's just not the money. It is that they want to be seen as somebody that the village looks up to.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if we can bring in all those aspects together, then the life of the household improves, and we can then graduate in a way, to the next level for everybody. The last thing I want to share, and you brought that up, and I want to probably bring you into that get your experience there, is the financing piece. Same thing, right? So, Shashank, again, a few years ago, I'd been to one of the village, and I was telling him, listen, I got a friend who can buy your stuff, and he'll pay you 20% higher. Why don't you sell to him? And he says, sir, you don't understand. One, I know I'm paying much higher to the money lender, but he was giving me an example when he said, last month my father was unwell. I had to rush him to the hospital at 10 o'clock. And he says, guess who landed up at that hospital at 10:30 with 5,000 rupees with no question asked was my local dealer. Yeah. He says, you guys are in Bangalore. Will you do that for me? Right? Then I realized that it is just not money. I mean, we look at it only from a money lens, but it's the social security that they have. Yeah. Right? So he says, just for a few hundred rupees more, if I start dealing with you, I'll be ostracized from my community, and I won't have anybody to help me when I'm in need. Right? So it is just not, many times we make the mistake as entrepreneurs of looking at only one sliver of a solution and saying, oh, if I solve this problem, everything will be hunky-dory. Right? And as you rightly said, it's all interconnected. So what's been your experience on this vexed financing side? Have you been able to, what are the lessons and insights that you have on financing the farmer?
So again, this is something we have added very recently. But as I said, that to any specific subsector of agriculture value chain, we always see in a connected, in an interlinked. Right? So the trigger for us to start financing was that, hey, so the same farmer, he's buying agri inputs through us, he's getting advisory through us, his land parcel is geotagged. Through satellite imagery, we have been tracking their land parcel, right, on a weekly basis. He's selling or she's selling the farm produce through us as well. So basically, and there has been a history, there has been a trust, right? There has been a lot of data exchange, data in terms of spatial data, transactional data, behavioral data. So this was one trigger point. And then the second was what you said, right? The overall financing cost currently in rural area is 3 to 5% monthly.
Per month,
36 to 60% annual. But still, right? I mean, they do that, right? I mean, they know that it's very costly, but still for them, the access is important. The certainty is more important.
Exactly.
Another way to look at the fact that that how as a farming as a practice is like how much profitable this is, right? Where someone is borrowing money at 60% annualized and still making money.
Still making money, exactly.
But anyways, so our thesis around financing is just to bring these banks and BFCs who are mandated to lend to farmer, but just the fact that that they don't know the farmer, there is a gap. One side, less than 12 to 15% Indian farmers have got access to structured financing, and another side, farmers they are borrowing at like such a mind-boggling rate of interest.
Exactly.
So that's where DeHaat as a platform come. And they say, okay, so let's say let us give you more and more intelligence about the farmer, and then probably again you can bridge the gap. What you said regarding the experience of the farmer, and we totally agree, right? I mean, that's where when we talk about, like, again, in case of DeHaat, we have a physical sort of way of delivering all these services, right? Who are DeHaat centers. So effectively, these DeHaat centers are located in deep rural area, in a catchment of 3 to 5 kilometers. And who runs these DeHaat centers? Someone from the same community.
Exactly.
So that's where basically you bring physical presence and hence certainty that, hey, so through these physical setup, we are here with you.
Correct.
Here. And this is it took us years to understand these things. That let's say you need to have your presence closer to the community, then only the trust will be established.
Exactly.
And hence it can't be pure digital. It can't be pure tech, right? I mean, because ultimately that trust has to be established, right? So you have to be there. And then at the same time, right? I mean, something what we are discussing today, which is like building entrepreneurs in agriculture. So we thought that, hey, so I think again, it's not possible just for us, right? 2 of the DeHaat centers we ran by ourselves, and we were very happy that, hey, so through these two DeHaat centers, in fact, like now we are working with 1,200 farmers, and then suddenly we realized that, hey, the Bihar itself has got like more than 5 million farmers. India has like 100 million farmers. Globally, there are more than 500 million farmers. How would you do that? And then again, since then, like we started building playbooks, technologies, and then just started giving these platforms to SHG equivalent people, rural micro entrepreneurs, right? And in fact, like started empowering them, enabling them as a one-stop solution provider in their own respective catchment area, right? I mean, and again, that's how what you said, right? I mean, in fact, the same guy, in fact, like they also started getting an alternative sort of business or income for the family, and at the same time, again, to the respective community, in fact, like it was more like a certainty that that someone is here. So yeah, lots of things.
Yeah, no, I think we can go on these learnings for a long time and take the next few hours. But I'll underline one point that you made is trust, right? That especially in rural and especially with communities like farmers and the households, establishing that trust is the most critical thing that has to happen. And one is to establish, and two is to uphold that trust,
Yeah.
right? Uh, the kind of scams that have been unleashed on rural, especially on farmers, are not funny. It takes a long time for us to gain their trust. And just as an example, it was funny. We're doing a large initiative with WhatsApp to change behaviors on UPI payments in rural India.
Yeah.
And in order to help them overcome the fear that if I transfer money online, will it go? Will it be debited from my account and not credited to the other guy, etc. So we made a mistake of in the process. There is one code we send to the consumer, and he has to give the code back to our entrepreneur. So we called it an OTP, and it was so funny that none of the farmers, none of the rural consumers refused to. I mean, most of the rural consumers refused to give us the OTP. They say, no, we're not supposed to share OTP with you. I said, that's a great behavior, but hey, it is my number. I'm sending it to you. Give it back to me. No. We are not supposed to share OTP, right? So it put two things to us. One is that at least there is an understanding that you've been bitten so many times that you are now being careful. But the other time is there's such a lack of trust. Right. So I think, how do you design the engagement in the community where you establish and uphold trust is a critical learning that we've had.
You're talking about OTP, you're talking about transactions.
Yeah.
Still, I would count it like a huge sort of thing for them. I'm talking about mobile number, right? Like during our initial days, I think at that point of time, again, this mobile penetration was not that great as of today, but people, in fact, like they were quite reluctant to share their mobile number. That why do you use mobile number?
Yeah.
Like, hey, so if we will not get your mobile number, how will we reach out to you? And our entire advisory module is through phone, right? And again through IVR, through call center. But again, there was some resistance. But again, where things are now is like obviously now because of the number of use cases around, right? So
exactly, absolutely, excellent. No, I think we have Meena joining us. Welcome, Meena.
No, what a fantastic session, Shashank and Madan. The aim is here not to interrupt, but also to bring in a lot of comments and questions that have come up, and I thought you might be interested to hear them and perhaps take some of them as well.
Why not? Yeah.
So the first one goes to Shashank. Anisha Singh says that she was very inspired by your data, where you said that the average age as per your data is now 41 years of the farmer instead of 50. So her question is, what in your opinion can change the youth mindset to look at agriculture as a more interesting livelihood option and alleviate problems attached to it at a faster rate?
It's again, everything is result centric. As I said very briefly, the only reason why, let's say, youth in rural area, they're not into agriculture because they don't see enough upside. As simple as that. And again, let's say if I share another data, Anisha, so 80% of net sown area in India is under crops like wheat, rice, mustard, very conventional crop, where the unit economics itself is not very lucrative. And that's the reason why people don't see enough upside. But the point is, with the help of technology, the gestation period to learn the new farming techniques, to learn the farming of new crops, and also to de-risk yourself as a farmer for the market, for the know-how, for the financing, and hence the gestation period is very much likely to get shortened. And again, and hence, as a farmer, as a youth, basically, you are very well equipped now to switch from those conventional crops to maybe high value crops, right? So yeah, that's the answer.
Exactly.
Okay. The next question, perhaps Madan, you can take, and maybe Shashank, you can comment on it as well. This is from Malcolm D'Souza of St. Aloysius College. He says, how do you expect agriculture development to go in the coming decade, given given the issues that we have sort of seen, I think that's what he means to ask, and there's sort of a fairly long question after that. So let me try and rephrase it and share it in short.
Sure.
So how do you expect agriculture development to go in this decade, especially given all the political issues to ensure that the farmer at the end doesn't suffer?
Sure. So my view on this is, Malcolm, that I believe markets and technologies will be a great leveler, right? The next decade is going to see a slew of technology innovations that will help farmers improve productivity, efficiency, connect to markets better, etc. We're just talking of the smartphone, but imagine, we are still yet to scratch the surface of IoT in agriculture. We're seeing the advent of drones now coming in to help better farming, and several precision farming innovations are underway, right? So I think technology and the ability to sit in a village and connect to the market directly, without having to worry about where my next customer is going to come from. And we're seeing again green shoots of that happen, right? And I believe finally, when the force of the technology and the market takes over, everything else falls into line, right? And we've seen that happen over and over again in multiple sectors. So I think with the kind of upsurge we're seeing in Agritech and connections to markets, it's only a question of time that these pressures that we see externally start fading away and the markets will rule. The second thing I want to share here is also that we are seeing a massive improvement in the physical infrastructure as well. Roads, logistics, last mile connectivity, which also first mile connectivity, so on and so forth. So it again adds to the fact that you'll be connecting easier to the markets, and the markets will be at your doorstep rather than you having to chase markets. I think will change the dynamics of how agriculture has been perceived over the last 7 decades. Shashank, love to get your take.
You were talking about infrastructure. I could recall during, and I know I'm talking like an oldie, and obviously I'm not. But during my childhood days, in fact, we used to walk 5 kilometers just to go to school. Right, and again, I mean, there was no road at all. Right?
Wow.
But again, things have changed a lot, right? In general, physical and digital connectivity has improved. But Malcolm, coming to your question, see, whether it's a political scenario within India, outside of India, whether it's private player, voluntary organization, entrepreneurs, or farmers, or corporate for that matter, in today's world, everyone is united by a single cause, and people have realized that is food safety, food security. It's not India specific problem, right? Everyone has realized that, that let's say if we have to look at 1-2 decades away, this is one very serious issue. Again, we have to solve for, which is food safety, food security. So hence, to your question, you will find a lot of collaborative effort, right, in next 10 years. And again, I would again repeat that stage is all set, right? So you would find that that let's say policymakers, in fact, they're very much aligned, towards sort of again what's needed towards it, right? So a lot of synchronized and collaborative effort, and hence basically farmers, in fact, obviously they will get benefited out. So one is that, and second is, I think briefly, in fact, Madan touched as well, that that a lot of things will change. As on date, even like based on our experience, if I say that even as on date, the smartphone penetration in rural India, it's still like 15 to 25%.
Yeah.
Right. Western India, it's like 40-45. Eastern India is still like 10-12. And but still, like the adoption is still like very low. But obviously, in next decade or so, you will find farmers, they are more friendly, comfortable around digital adoption, a lot of new techniques, what Madan rightly mentioned, whether it's drone or IoT. But again, why? As I said earlier, just for one common goal, everyone has realized that that they will have to get aligned to this. So what people have seen in past, like different people, whether government or private players or entrepreneurs, right? They all have been chasing different goals. That's not going to happen in next decade or so, which is great for this.
Thank you. And I think we have time just for one more question, and I'll request our audience, which is now a little over 3,000, if I may add and share with the speakers as well. They can continue to sort of post their comments and questions, and we'll try and get them answered. The last question that I would like the two of you to sort of take is actually a response in a way to what Shashank and Madan you just talked about, saying decreasing quality of soil and degrading nutrient value of food are issues of concern. What are players like you doing to adopt sustainable farming to ensure sufficient supply and quality food to the population? This is from Priyanka Pugaukar.
I can go first. You are absolutely you're bang on, Priyanka. So that is, unfortunately, ironically, that is the byproduct or outcome or consequence of first green revolution in India. As DeHaat, let's say in our case, our entire package of practices or an advisory, it's all around resource efficient farming. It's all right. So we are encouraging farmers to shift towards water soluble plant growth regulators or more bio or more sustainable solutions. Why? Because of the same, and again I would repeat, right? This is all because of the long-term solution around food safety and security. And also, in fact, like that's a need of ours. I wouldn't say just us as DeHaat. Everyone has been transitioning towards that, right? I mean, let's say again optimizing the fertilizer dosage with the help of technology. For example, in our case, we have digitized the farm boundaries of like almost entire rural part of India. So, but that means even for a small holder, regardless of the land size, we are just educating them regarding the right dosage of fertilizer. Right, with the help of satellite imagery, in fact, we get to know the water stress, crop stress, nutrient stress, and based on that, basically, we are advising them that what to use, what not to use. So, and again, this is all because of exactly what you asked for, right? Which is a long-term sustainability for the soil fertility, and at the same time, low residual or zero residual, food quality for the consumer.
Yeah.
Madan, last word.
I'll take a slightly zoomed out view on this question. See, the point is that I think this is a question that we must ask again and again, and everybody must talk about it all the time. I think as an ecosystem, we have to amplify these voices, right? Otherwise, what happens is it will become business as usual, and we know the precarious condition our planet is in, right? So if we take the larger aspect of the whole climate change, sustainability, and saving our planet, I'm glad that there is awareness and these voices rising, but it's still not enough, right? So I'm speaking from an alliance, from an ecosystem standpoint, that if we can pick 4 or 5 critical questions that we as an ecosystem must ask and must act in concert, we must orchestrate it, we must talk the same language, I think then the significant change will happen. Otherwise, we'll be a bunch of fringe groups, folks who will talk whatever we want, share our opinions, but the world will not change, right? So I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and I look forward to platforms like this where we can orchestrate and galvanize a larger movement around these things, rather than being nice to do things. These must become the must to do things that we have to do.
Thank you, Madan. We will take your cue on that, and Knowledge Factory continues to do that. So
Excellent.
Over to you, Rini. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Shashank, lovely chatting up with you.
Thank you, Shashank and Madan.